It was to be a great party, set up by no one but the king himself. Preparations were also made, great. Invitations were sent. And at the end, somehow it didn't work. It failed. And so, out of despair or not, servants were sent out to invite anyone. First, the invited ones, but they didn't come. And so others were invited as well, bad and good alike. Do we know these stories of today like that? Perhaps very seldom, because any form of a party or invitation has to be very formal, has to be confirmed, has to be well prepared, because those who do so, those who prepare the party, they are also very much concerned about the opinion that would go around after. But this party was not the only one that was somehow troubled. There was another one when, you remember that episode when John the Baptist was beheaded? A birthday party. And it turned out to be a slaughter, turned out to be a murder, because someone demanded the head of John the Baptist. How did that party go? Probably it wasn't pleasant. In ancient times, as much as in the modern times, the main criteria of wealth and prosperity of the nation, or of the people, was food, shelter, and security. In our times today, there are more things that are added to it. It is clothing, health, education, democracy. And even recently someone added that our preparedness to disasters. That's the criteria of the wealth and prosperity. But food was always at the top of any need of any human being. In the ministry of Jesus, that concept of party, of food, of celebration was very frequent. And because the food was important and is still very important. We remember that the first ever miracle that Jesus made was during the wedding ceremony when there was not enough wine. And he changed water into wine. We remember the episode when Jesus went to dine in the house of Zacchaeus, when he was a crook, but at the end, during the party, he changed and he opened his heart and he was very generous. We remember twice Jesus multiplied the bread when he taught the people, and then when the apostles noticed that there were too many and they were far away, Jesus told them to give them food, but he had in mind something else. And on 2 occasions he multiplied the bread and fish and gave them to eat. We also remember another episode when Jesus brought back to life the daughter of Jairus. And immediately after that he told them, give her something to eat. And shortly before he suffered, he called the disciples for the Last Supper. And the main celebration that we continue doing so these days was at the table. The table is a great place. And those who are sitting around the table at food and eat, they are on a special occasion. And so the Word of God today reminds us about extended generosity and hospitality of God towards each one of us. He announced it already through the prophet Isaiah, as we heard in the first reading, that the Lord is going to prepare a great banquet. That was the promise. There will be enough food and drink. There all the divisions will be crushed. And he will restore joy, because he talks about removing all the tears. Because how could people enjoy the meal together if they were in trouble? So first, the preparation had to be done. The community would have to be reconciled, recognized by each other. And everything would have to be ready in order to enjoy, because indeed, when we meet at the table, we share our joys. We are not only satisfying our needs, but we enjoy the presence of one another. And this concept of invitation for a party, for a meal, is translated into the Eucharist. We celebrate the Eucharist because we are all invited. And we are all called, good and bad alike, as the Gospel tells us. And so we experience that generosity of God, and we can learn also what St. Paul said from his experience, that he knows how to live life, because he knows how to live in poverty, and he knows how to live in wealth. And the same things we experience in our lives today. We perhaps wish to know how to live, because the troubles come very often that we don't know how to live, because we might be too often dissatisfied on the conditions that we are living with. And usually the main issue is it's never enough. There is ever trouble. But yet, to sit down at the table, it needs a peace of mind and a peace of heart and the openness to the person who is sitting next to me. There are parties organized by the groups, by politicians sometimes, by different entities, but there is no greater party than God sets up for us when we are gathered around his table. And so we know that that generosity and that hospitality is the part of our own experience. However, in the Gospel, we also hear that there was someone who came without the wedding dress. It sounds a bit strange. Why everybody was forced even to come for the wedding, and only one was noticed not to have the wedding dress? Well, I guess, was he picked up from the street and then under security was forced to come to the big hall? Perhaps he had a little time, or even could say, let me go and change. But was it greed, or was it insecurity that the door might be locked before he comes? We don't know. But we only know that this man was unworthy to be present during the party, and so he was sent away, and he was punished. Looking into our own experience of Christian faith of today, we can simply recognize the voice of God, that we are all invited to participate in the great feast that the Lord prepares for us every day. However, it's not just for free in terms of not paying or doing whatever. It needs a preparation in the same way as we prepare ourselves when we set up Christmas, when we go to the restaurant, when we are to meet our friends, when they are coming to visit us, whenever there is any family celebration, birthday, wedding, or whatsoever. We don't come straight from the factory, we don't come straight from the field and sit down, but first we need to be prepared. And that great banquet that God prepared for us, it's not only that Eucharist, but it's also the final banquet at the end of time when we join him in heaven. And in other words, in the shortest way, we could simply say, we need to earn it. We need to do everything to earn that heaven and to earn that Eucharist. And for us at this moment, it is so easy when we turn back to God and come and ask for forgiveness, when I ask for the guidance to find the proper way to that hall that we may participate in that banquet, to find in another person, but not just a competitor or enemy or someone who threatens my own word or my own security. Reconciliation is a great key towards enjoying the invitation that we are all, to understand that we are all one family. We are all gathered around Christ, and as many times we have been reminded for the past few Sundays, our responsibility, this is also the great one extended to us. And we learn how to live in good times and in bad times. We learn how to be generous in the same way how God was generous when He invited us for the great banquet. And we have to make all the necessary efforts that our hearts are open towards the other person in any form, not in giving just food, shelter, or clothes, but in sharing our hearts and joy that comes from God and made its place in ourselves. Sometimes people need much more a word of consolation, just the ear to be heard, to hear their case instead of anything else. Someone said that he met in China somewhere on the street a lady who was begging, and a Christian happened to be passing by, and then he offered her some good words or some help, and she said, "I don't need food, I don't need anything else, but I'm so happy that you stopped and greeted me. Where did you get that idea from?" And that Christian said, "There was someone 2,000 years ago that was doing like that, and I remember and I practiced." And so that lady said, 2,000 years ago, how did it happen that I never heard about? And so a conversion started. Conversion started because of a good heart and smile and a good word. We need good words to one another to extend in the word of uncertainties. We need to build the peace. We need to build a tolerance, acceptance of one another. But we need to build the values that are common to us, but not competing who is better or who is worse. So let us ask the Lord to teach us how to live in good times and in bad times. Amen.